Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about LTCN and how much money you could potentially make in this bull run with the profit targets. With that being said, let's get it. So we're going to go over a few things here. We're going to go over a few different potential investment scenarios that could play out, how much you could potentially expect to make, what the risks are, and what the different profit target levels are. So before I get into that, I want to let you guys know that the Bitcoin halving is roughly about 9 to 10 days away. Generally speaking, we do not see the biggest moves on these grayscale trusts until until the end of the year during the halving year. Why is this significant? Because as you guys can see, we're in April 2024 and we are not even close to these levels that we were at. So again, we're in the halving year, but we're not at the end of it. This right here is at the end of the halving year. You guys can see the discrepancy between the two prices here, which tells me that the price appreciation of LTCN has not been priced into the market yet. So another thing I want to point out here is Bitcoin. Once again, this matters because Bitcoin moves the market. In 2020, Bitcoin had its halving back here in May. So as you guys can see, the vertical white line, that's the halving for the previous cycle. We were basically doing nothing after the halving, so it sat at 10,000 for months. And we were not at new all-time highs. In fact, we were not even close to 20K at that time. We were still 50% below the all-time highs at that time. So since the spot Bitcoin ETFs have been approved, we have gone up to and even surpassed all-time highs as a result of the spot Bitcoin ETFs and the seemingly endless flow of demand. And this has happened well in advance of historically when it should. Usually we shouldn't be seeing these prices till the end of the year. But the important thing to note here is that pretty much all eyes are still on Bitcoin, not so much on the alts, and I'll get into that in a minute. But once again, I want to point out the bullish scenario. So when we broke 2017 highs, Bitcoin smashed straight up. Okay, but this again was after the halving. Halving event hasn't happened yet. And once we get past all-time highs and the halving event has happened at some point, probably before the end of the year, Bitcoin's going to smash straight up, just like it did in 2020. But as you guys saw on the charts with LTCN, the price did not move up until about November 2020. That was roughly around when Bitcoin was, after the halving, it was starting to push to new all-time highs. Technically, we are at all-time highs right now, but it's not actually like doing anything super parabolic, where it's pretty much just going like straight up to 150, 200,000. That's kind of what I'm expecting to happen after the halving at some point. So those are all things to keep in mind. But in terms of the price potential for LTCN, the current price is $42. The peak is $50 or $510. So if we measure that on basically like an X basis, so you get about a 12X. 12X is pretty good. So let's throw in some numbers here and see what you guys could potentially make on this. I do understand there is risk. This thing could always pull back. It could top out much sooner than $500. It could go much higher than $500. Anything is possible in crypto. So we'll just throw out some random numbers here. So you got a 12.15x to get to the highs. We'll pick 1,000, 5,000, and 10,000. Okay. So you put $1,000 in. Let's say you put $1,000 in now, and you just hold it. You don't do anything with it, and you wait until it gets to the previous all-time highs. You would 12x your money, so you turn $1,000 into 12,000. Now let's say instead you did a $5,000 investment, and you got that same we'll just call it a 12.1x. Your 5K would turn into 60,500. Again, this is assuming you have this money just laying around. You're not doing anything with it. You can afford to lose it. Okay. If you lost it, it would not cause you financial catastrophe, stuff like that. Not financial advice, but it's always good to be smart with money, at least have something on the side. So we'll take the third level of an investment, and we'll say 10K times 12.1x. your 10K. And this is, again, assuming you didn't buy anything extra on the dip. You just bought at one price and just said, I'm not going to buy anything more, but I'm not going to sell it till it gets to the all-time highs. You turn 10K into 121K. So those are pretty good returns. Now, let's just assume you wanted to wait for a pullback and you say, well, I'm not going to buy this until it gets to $25. Well, that changes a lot. So we'll take a look at those numbers. So 510 divided by 25. You can see how much of a difference just buying the pullback makes. So you went from basically a 12x to about a 20.5x at this point. So we'll do the same numbers here. So 1,000 times 20.5x. You turn your $1,000 into $20,500, and keep in mind this is before taxes. So we'll go with the second set of funds here. So 5,000 times 20.5x. You'd be looking at about 102,500. And if you put in 10,000 times 20.5x, it would be, you'd turn your 10,000 into $205,000. Now this is assuming that you wanted to wait for the pullback. And based how overextended this does appear to be from the EMAs, I would say that might actually be a prudent idea. Again, not financial advice. Wherever you choose to take your entries, that's up to you. I'm just pointing out the zones to you. So we're going to take a look at the Fibonacci levels and see what's actually possible here. So I believe the low on LTCN was roughly about $2 a share. So we'll go with that. See if I can line it up as close as possible. $3, yeah, that's close enough. So we'll go over these different levels here and see what's possible, okay? So we're first going to go with the current price, and then we'll go with the pullback scenario. So the first Fibonacci level here is at $830. So we'll just assume you wanted to buy in now. You didn't want to wait. So we'll do 830 divided by 42.3. You'd be looking at about a 19.6x. So if you put $1,000 in and just said, well, I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to sell it till it gets to 830, which do understand. You guys need to understand it may not even go that high. Okay, that's possible. It might go way higher. It might go up to $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, or it might top out at like $400 or $500 or $300. We really don't know. Okay, this is all speculation. Don't know ultimately where it's going to go, but it's possible. I would say that this thing could go to beyond $500, especially with all that money being pumped into the markets from the spot Bitcoin ETFs, and you have major banks like Goldman Sachs and all these other guys that have hundreds of billions of dollars sitting on the sidelines waiting to invest. Based on that information, I would say that it's possible LTCN could go much higher than the previous all-time highs. But do understand the risks. So 1,000 times 19.6x, this is what you get. Now, if we go to the next level here, this is the 2.618. You'll see it's roughly about 1340. So we do 1340 divided by 42. It's dropped a little bit. So we'll say 4230 now. So 31 point, we'll just say a 31.7x. Oh, actually, scratch that. So we're going to go back to this one. So 830. So $830. We'll get to the next one in a minute. So 830 divided by 4234. Try this one more time. So 19.6x. So we'll assume you put 5,000 in this time. 19.6x. You'd be looking at about 98K. Now let's just assume you put 10,000 in times a 19.6x. You'd be looking at $196,000 from that. So now going up to the second fib level, and again, we're going to do the initial investment based on just buying in at the current price, not waiting for a pullback, none of that, just saying, here's my money, take my money, I'll wait for the rip, and then there it is. So 1340 divided by the current price, 4240, be about a 31.6x. So $1,000 invested. And we do actually have some of our own money invested into LTCN. For those of you guys that have followed us on this channel for a while, you know that. But for those of you guys that are new, we do actually own some LTCN. So we're not just talking about this and not actually invested in it. We do actually own some. So $1,000 would turn into 31,600. Now we'll do 5K times 31.6, and keep in mind this is only getting to the second fib level, 158K. And then 10K times 31.6 again, 316K. So really good returns. So the next level, 3.618, is roughly about 1860. So 1860 divided by 42.5. Looks like LTCN wants to move back up now. So we'll just call this basically a 40, we'll say a 43.8x. So times this by 43.8, you'd be looking at 43,800. The second initial investment, so again, times 43. Well, let me go back here and look and make sure this is correct. Yeah, 43.8. Okay. So that'd be 219,000, and then we do the third initial investment of basically 10,000 times 43.8. You'd be looking at about 438,000. So the top Fibonacci level, this is 20, we'll just call it 2170. So 2170 divided by the current price would be 42, we'll just call it 4250. You get about a 51x. So that's, I mean, if you just put $1,000 in and you got that, that would be an exceptional return for anything. Doesn't matter what it is. So about 51K on that. That's a really good return in my opinion. I mean, it's like you could buy like a car or two with that. So the next one would be the second initial investment of 5K times 51x. You'd be looking at 255K. And then the third initial investment times a 51x, 510K. So now we're going to go ahead and assume that instead of wanting to buy at the current price, you want to wait for the dip, and you say, well, I'm not going to buy unless it gets to $25, then I will buy. And let's say you do actually get that dip buy. Let's say you have to wait like, I don't know, maybe a few months or something, and then it happens. So we'll do the measurements on that. So again, 1.618 is at 830 divided by 25, and you guys are going to see how much of a difference this makes. So 33.2x. So 1K times 33.2, 33,200. 5K times 33.2, 166K. And then 10K times 33.2, 332,000. So 2.618 is at 1330. Now this is where it starts to get ridiculous, and trust me when I tell you all this is possible. In the last bull run, we literally watched Doge go from about where we bought in was 0.2 of a penny, but the low I believe was at 1/10 of a penny or something like that. From that to about 75 cents. So I don't know what that is. I mean, it's a lot of money. I could maybe do the math now. So 75 divided by 0.001. So yeah, that's 1/10 of a penny. So Dogecoin did a 750x on the last cycle. If you don't believe me, you can go back and look at the data for yourself on CoinGecko.com or on TradingView or whatever. It did actually happen, just so y'all know. Okay, so 53.2x. So 1K. I basically say that to say that a 53x is possible. I mean, we've personally seen some tokens that have done like many hundreds of x's in the last cycle. So 53,200, 5,000 times 53.2x, you'd be looking at 266,000, and an initial investment of 10K times 53.2, 532,000. So 2.618, 1840 divided by 25 is a 73.6x. So this is where it starts to get really interesting. So 73.6x, you'd be 73,600. Initial investment of 5K times 73.6x, 368,000. and an initial investment of 10K times, again, 73.6x, 736K. So 2160 on the top Fibonacci level, that's the 4.236. This is the top measurable level as of right now. Could go much higher, could top out much lower, anything's possible. So 2180 divided by 25, 87.2x. So you're talking almost a 90x at this point. It's just crazy. And if you had bought down at $2, I mean, sky's the limit at that point. There's no telling how much money you could make. That'd be like what, 1,000x at this point or some. I don't even know how much that is. I think that's actually 1,000x. It's a little bit more than 1,000x. So that's pretty crazy. Okay, so 1,000 times 87.2. It's 87,200. Put 5,000 in initially times 87.2, and that's assuming it gets up to that $2,200 level, 436,000. And then 10K times 87.2, $872,000. So do keep in mind, it could go much higher than this. That is a possibility. There's a chart that I showed you guys in the past that I don't know if you remember this, but we took a look at the first spot gold ETF. Okay. And gold is a precious metal. We have owned gold in the past. We still do currently own some gold, although it's a very small amount compared to what it used to be. But the first spot gold ETF that was approved for the 7 years following that spot ETF approval, the price of gold basically just went up for 7 straight years. It went up. Okay. And there is no hard cap on gold. There's only 21 million ever Bitcoin. Miners can mine as much gold as they can find out of the earth. So there's no guarantee there's a hard cap on that. And the spot Bitcoin ETF has had record inflows, the fastest and the largest in history. In terms of spot ETF approvals, it's been the most quickly adopted ever in history. So I'll show you guys the chart in a following video so you guys can reflect back on this and look for yourself. It's possible that Bitcoin and altcoins could just keep going up forever. We don't know. Okay, we don't know if the 4-year cycle pattern has been broken and we're going to go into the coveted super cycle. We just don't know yet. But if that does happen, LTCN could go way higher than 2,200. It's possible. So the last thing I want to point out to you guys before I close out this video one more time, we're going to keep talking about this until it actually happens. The Bitcoin dominance. Okay. Last time Bitcoin topped out, or I should say it broke its previous all-time highs as Bitcoin was going up in value and pushing towards its all-time highs, the dominance was falling, but it didn't really start falling off a cliff until right here about January 2021 when Bitcoin did actually top out. The money flowed from Bitcoin into altcoins. That's what this breakdown represents here. As you guys can see, the waterfall moment in the BTC dominance, indicating that money flowed out of Bitcoin and into altcoins. That is when the alt season happens. We have not seen that yet. As you guys can see, we still have not had a breakdown on the BTC dominance. We're kind of coiling up into this wedge here in between that and the resistance area. So no confirmed move yet. But when we get the breakdown, that's alt season. And that's when the biggest moves on the grayscale trusts, especially LTCN and BCHG, should be coming up. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.